Welcome to the Worth Knowing live stream. I'm Matt Robison, and right now, we're in the middle of a real-time test of the biggest question on earth. Can anything be done to restrain an American president who is on the verge of openly committing war crimes in the next few hours? And there's an even deeper question that follows from that one. I'll get to that in a moment. The clear and present danger at this hour is that there are bombers fueling right now, missiles loading right now, pilots suiting up as I speak these words. Politico reports that the Pentagon is actively expanding a list of Iranian energy sites it can target to include ones that provide fuel and power to both civilians and the military in order to provide cover against accusations of war crimes. And Axios reports that Trump himself is now the most pro-escalation voice in the room, and they cite one unnamed official who describes the president as, quote, bloodthirsty, like a mad dog. You've probably heard by now what Donald Trump said on Easter morning 48 hours ago. He wrote on Truth Social, and I'm going to pull it up right here, Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one, in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. And believe it or not, he was just getting started, because just a few hours ago, he upped the ante even further. But before I even tell you about that, let me tell you what former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote in reaction to Trump's Truth Social post. Have you seen it? Because I, for one, did not have MTG as the voice of sanity and reason on my 2026 bingo card. Here it is. She wrote that everyone in his administration that claims to be a Christian needs to fall down on their knees and beg for forgiveness from God and stop worshiping the president and intervene in Trump's madness. I know all of you and him, and he has gone insane, and all of you are complicit. Kudos to you, Marjorie. I struggle to think of many people with whom I've disagreed more in the past 5 years, but there's nothing more Christian than believing in a redemption story, especially on Easter, and let this serve as a measure of redemption for you, saying exactly what needs to be said. And then there's this crystal clear and powerful denunciation of what Trump said on Sunday. Quote, no decent person mocks another people's religions. You mock other people's faith, you mock the idea of faith itself. We are not God. Only if you think this way, only if you think you are, do you talk this way. This is not a mockery of Islam. This is a mockery of Christianity. To send a tweet with the F word on Easter morning, promising the murder of civilians and then saying, praise be to Allah, you are mocking every other Christian and me. That is evil. That is an intentional desecration of beauty and truth, which is the definition of evil. And my bingo card just exploded in flames. Because you know who said that? Tucker Carlson. But of course, none of this is going to matter, because Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker join a long list of prominent figures in American life who have done the Donald Trump morning after walk of shame and gone from preeminent, powerful positions with Trump to literally begging America to find a way to stop it. Omarosa Manigault Newman, who publicly warned Trump is unfit and dangerous. Sarah Matthews, a deputy press secretary who warned Trump was a threat to America. Kevin McCarthy, former Speaker of the House and Trump's right-hand man in Congress. Elaine Chao, Trump's Secretary of Transportation. Anthony Scaramucci, former Trump Communications Director. Mark Mulvaney, Trump's former Chief of Staff. Nikki Haley, former Trump Ambassador to the United Nations. Rex Tillerson, Trump's first Secretary of State. John Bolton, Trump's third National Security Advisor. Mark Milley, Trump's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who called him a wannabe dictator. James Mattis, Trump's former Secretary of Defense. John Kelly, Trump's second Chief of Staff and another former general. Bill Barr, Trump's second Attorney General. Alyssa Farah Griffin, Trump's Communications Director. Mark Esper, his second Secretary of Defense. Former Homeland Security and National Security staffers Alexander Vindman, Olivia Troy, Elizabeth Newman, Miles Taylor, former Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates, and of course, former Vice President Mike Pence. If all of those people who have been closest to the president, especially on matters of national security, have begged their fellow Americans, and especially fellow Republicans, to stop him, I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker won't be able to make a difference. But I also know that, because I said a moment ago, Trump just went even further. Only a few hours ago, Donald Trump warned that if Iran does not meet his demands by tonight, quote, a whole civilization will die, never to come back again. He could not say more plainly what's supposed to be the quiet part. His threat from Sunday of attacking civilian power plants, civilian roads, civilian infrastructure, attacking what people need to live, was exactly what we read it to be. Even as over the last 48 hours, the Trump administration has scrambled to defend what Trump said and justify those military assets, those targets as military assets. Trump went ahead and blew that alibi up by casually admitting to the dictionary definition of genocide and committing a war crime, because the law of war, agreed to by the United States of America, prohibits measures of intimidation against the civilian population of another country, including threats of violence whose primary purpose is to sow terror amongst the civilian population. Now, I said at the top that all of this poses an even deeper question, and here it is. Beyond the question of this one war and those one set of war crimes, are we stopping Donald Trump in all of his attacks on everything we do? Because as bad as everything that's happening right now is, it's only one piece of a much larger picture. And that's where I want to check in today, because there are really two battlegrounds where we're fighting out that larger question. One of them is legal. We've talked a lot on this show, and there's been endless discussion across media about the battle playing out in the federal courts to restrain all of the illegal authoritarian things that Trump is trying to do. I've talked to legal experts, Steve Vladeck, Glenn Kirshner, Kim Whaley, Joyce Vance, Barb McQuaid, and many more about it on this show. And in just the past 2 weeks, we've seen a string of critical rulings in the federal courts that give us an up-to-the-minute picture of how the fight is going. And it's a bit confusing. It's worth sorting through and understanding. Then there's the other battlefield, the political battlefield. And of course, we've talked a lot on this show about how that fight is unfolding, about the impact of the No Kings protests and what we're seeing in polling and the action in Congress and the struggle to keep the midterm election free and fair, since it's our best chance to get some constraints back. There's been some new developments in the past few days in polling that I think are really interesting and set up maybe a different way of thinking about how Democrats in particular have been doing in the political battle. There's been no end of criticism of the Democratic Party and its leaders. Some of it is surely justified, but is it possible that they may have been more successful in the long game than we've really been giving them credit for? Those are some big and tough questions. So we need someone who understands the legal front and the political front, and the best person to help us sort through all of this is someone who is a former prosecutor, admitted to practice law in the Supreme Court, and also a former Democratic member of Congress who was Barack Obama's national co-chairman. He's also my former boss in Congress and an old friend, Paul Hodes. Paul.
Hello, Matt. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing as well as can be expected. Hesitate to stray into hyperbole, and I don't think I was. We are post a de facto war crime. We are in the midst of, right now, setting up another one. So let's start with what's happening right now. I alluded a moment ago to the fact that Trump's threats against a civilian population in themselves constitute a war crime. And if he follows through on them in the next few hours, the crime is only compounded. So can you walk us through, from a legal standpoint, why this is criminal?
For one thing, the Geneva Convention, it violates international law. Violations of the Geneva Convention are not prosecutable in the United States, but it is, under international law, a war crime. So there's that. He's violated the United States Constitution by waging a war of choice, an illegal war, without consultation with Congress. That's what a dictator does. He has done this repeatedly. He's done this and has not been restrained because the Republicans have a majority in both the House and the Senate. There is no real leverage to restrain him except the courts. The courts are slow. They may work, and we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, in the show, but they're slow. So if you go to court to stop Donald Trump from violating the Constitution by waging war without congressional approval, it could take months. But it's illegal. His hate speech has escalated, and we're in I don't know how many times you can use the word unprecedented to talk about Donald Trump. In his first term, he was surrounded by some sane people who were able to put some restraints to shackle him a little bit. He's now unrestrained, out of control, unhinged. Clearly, his rambling, crazy talk has everybody with a rational bone in their body thinking about the 25th Amendment. My Facebook feed is blowing up with various people, Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Melanie Stansbury, Democrats, like my good friend Steve Cohen on the judiciary, talking about the 25th Amendment. We've got a would-be dictator who is clearly psychologically infirm. He is mentally incapable of doing anything but reacting from his wounded child. I'm the boss. I know, but I don't have to talk to anybody about anything. I can do whatever the hell I want. And the shit has hit the fan, people, in this second term.
So let me ask, kind of to borrow a legal term, is there a remedy here? Because you alluded to this a second ago. Trump's the commander in chief. He wields the pardon power, which the Supreme Court has essentially said is untrammeled, and he cannot be prosecuted for crimes that have a nexus to his role as president.
Yeah.
And his threat, and he's tried to prosecute former members of Congress who are also former service members, who have reminded American military members of their obligation not to follow illegal orders. Is there, and we see a crime in progress. I want to call the cops. Is there anyone to call on the other end of this 911 line?
How about the leaders, the Republican leaders of the House and Senate? Give them a call and say, Mike Johnson, it might be time, even for Republicans, if you want to save your bacon, to do something about the madman who is driving your party off the cliff. That has about as much chance as you're asking me to run for president. Not going to happen this time. Not going to happen this time around. So the question that presses on my mind is, can we get to November? Can we get to the midterms? And by the way, are we going to have midterms? Because the reports are that Trump is trying to trump up some emergency situation to do something about the midterms. But it may be, and I am the object of hopeful articles and feeds from people who are beginning to see Marjorie Taylor Greene and other Republicans and even MAGA Republicans beginning to say this is a bridge too far, because, and it probably has to come from within his own party in terms of some kind of restraint. The courts are stopping him where they can, mostly. But as I've said at the top of the show, the courts are slow. And I see Lefty Graham saying the man is 95% dead already. He
sings with a choir invisible.
He's a walking word salad of it's madness.
Yeah.
It's madness.
Right. I want to do a couple of things. I want to turn here. You teased a moment ago that there is a political solution here. And as I said at the top, I want to talk about that. That is for in just a few minutes. I want to talk about how Democrats are doing on the political battlefield here, because I think there's some new polling evidence that we may be doing better than we thought, and we might be doing about as well as could be expected. And I'm just keeping up on the screen here a big hello to MJ, who is a frequent critic of Democratic Party leadership. And as I said before, I think they are justifiably open to criticism, but I really wonder if they may have subtly been doing a little bit better than even I realized at the time. So we'll get to that. I also want to acknowledge, because I want to turn to the legal questions and the broader legal battlefield first. I also want to acknowledge several comments that have come in. This question from Lefty Grams, will Trump taco on genocide? That is the question of the day. Is Trump going to taco on genocide? I, for one, and I've said this on the show before, I'm not against Trump tacoing. I think chickening out on horrible ideas is good. And so I'm pro taco. I'm even more pro taco than when Trump posted that Cinco de Mayo picture of himself eating a Taco Bell burrito bowl back on, what was that, in 2016. Cynthia Rice is asking, if Trump nukes the world, do I have to pay my mortgage on the 15th? Yes, you can make the check out to worthknowing.substack.com. That's my Substack. Come support me there, because the only things that will survive the nuclear apocalypse are apparently Tupperware, cockroaches, and my Substack. Please like and subscribe.
Wait a minute. Wait a second. if he nukes the world, is that an automatic extension on your taxes?
No, no,
of course
it's an
not. You still
automatic audit for
right.
anyone who
You
has
still
not,
have,
sworn fealty to MAGA. By the way, you can also, it's also fine to keep up your subscriptions to paulwhodes.substack.com. That's also a good place to send your hard-earned money. I'd like to also say thank you to Cynthia for, look, we have a rule on this live stream. If you want to come in and you want to disagree, you want to come in and be like, street love from above. Oh, I love your handle. And you want to say America first? I will splash your comment up on the screen. It is cool to dissent, disagree, and call me an idiot. That is fine. I will show it. I'm cool with it. You can even be random and ask, like, where am I dash Y5I? Hello, bot. Does anyone know why my farts smell so good and everyone else's stink? It's because you're a bot. That's why. But if you are going to start saying racist and anti-Semitic things, I'm going to go ahead and show this one, but not say it out loud. You're bounced. You're out of here. And fuck you very much. Okay, let's talk legal. As Trump would say, legal. They would call it legal. No one ever used that word before.
very strong
before
illegal.
Indicted 95 times. It's called the courts. Okay, I want to talk about the big bombshell ruling out of the Supreme Court, a critical ruling in the Steve Bannon case. Bannon was convicted for contempt of Congress. A federal court upheld that conviction. The Supreme Court just reversed them. This seems to me, as a non-lawyer in the room, to be a pretty critical case for the balance of powers and our ability to constrain any president. And that's really what we're talking about here as we look at this string of recent judicial rulings over the last 2 weeks. Where are we in the fight to constrain Trump? So what's the takeaway from this big Supreme Court case?
Okay, let me don't lose too much sleep is my first takeaway, and here's why. When there was a reasonably independent Department of Justice and a competent Attorney General, and people had the correct view of what happened on January 6th, Bannon was subpoenaed by Congress. He refused to appear. He was tried and convicted for that refusal to comply with the congressional subpoena, and he served his sentence. He served 4 months in jail for refusing to submit to the valid congressional subpoena. His defense team had filed a motion to dismiss. Let's fast forward. Trump is elected. There's an absolutely incompetent, sycophant, suck up, kiss ass, I'll do anything that the dictator wants me to do. Pam Bondi is Attorney General. She and the DOJ are now simply Trump's dogs who will bite anybody he wants them to bite. So the defense and the prosecution basically come and agree that the conviction ought to be dismissed because you no longer have an effective Department of Justice. It's not an independent agency. It's Trump.com. So now that the prosecution and defense agree it ought to be dismissed, the Supreme Court says in a two-sentence opinion, send it back to the district court and tell them that everybody agrees it ought to be dismissed. So now the district court will say to the judge, here's what everybody says. So the federal district court judge still has some discretion here because what the Supreme Court said was send it back to the district court. That district court judge could say he was convicted, he served his sentence. I see that they moved to dismiss, but I don't think so. I suppose he could.
I feel much better.
And so overall, we're back to the politics, right? You've got a dictator who's using his private law firm for his retribution and revenge. If we can claw our way back to democracy, checks and balances, and the normal rule of law, we will once again be able to enforce congressional subpoenas. I don't think this is a profound ruling that does away with the ability to enforce congressional subpoenas.
All right. So on the big scoreboard, we're
How's
going
that?
to chalk this one up as not really a victory for Trump and Bannon and the felon cabal. And let's move on to another one. There were two rulings that relate to basically the Trump assault on colleges and universities. One was something that I just covered in my most recent segment of That's Bullshit on the Political Rehab Show, which I'm really enjoying doing. I hope people will tune into, live streamed every Friday on Worth Knowing at 12:30 Eastern Daylight Time. A federal judge just compelled the University of Pennsylvania to hand over documents that might show the affiliation of students or employees with Jewish organizations. That would seem to be a win for the Trump administration. On the other hand, federal judges just blocked the Trump administration's demands for race and admissions data across 17 states. That is a mixed bag. What does the scorecard say there?
Look, there's a bigger picture at work here. Netanyahu has given Jews a bad name. Anti-Semitism is rising all over the world, and especially here in the country. There have been attacks on synagogues. There have been, you name it, we are experiencing, because of what Netanyahu has done in Gaza, committed unspeakable acts. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, and it's easy to conflate Jews, Israel, Netanyahu, Palestinian rights. And we've had an explosion on campuses, pro-Palestinian, let's call it anti-Netanyahu sentiment. So one might legitimately say it's a good thing for the EEOC to look at whether or not there is anti-Semitism on college campuses. On the other hand, in the larger picture, given the Christian white nationalist bent of Trump and everybody who is working with him to install a Christian white nationalist dictatorship, going after any specific religious group is fraught with questions for me. Whether it's under the cover of anti-Semitism, I think they were after a much bigger haul than simply looking at anti-Semitism. I think he's directed the EEOC to look at what's happened with DEI. So I kind of look at these as all part and parcel of the attack on DEI, as well as this request or this demand by the EEOC. So I think it's a good thing that specific information about the organization affiliations of any Jewish people, et cetera, was denied. And at the same time, in an EEOC investigation, it is not totally unusual to want to talk to people in an investigation. So to the extent that there is a problem with anti-Semitism on the Pennsylvania college campuses, and to the extent that the EEOC has some legitimate claim to want to talk to people about what's going on, okay, the denial of the other information, very, very important. So to me, this is not some huge win for the Trump administration. It's really more of a, let's see how this plays out. But I'm always skeptical when the Trump administration is looking for any information from anybody.
Yeah, I think you put your finger on it, that the real issue going on here is this is a very thinly veiled assault on colleges and universities because he's prosecuting his anti-woke, anti-DEI campaign promise case to kind of take down the big, scary liberal elites. He does not give a shit about anti-Semitism on campus. He does not give a shit about really the race and admissions policy. He just wants to make it seem like he is. I unpacked all of this, like I said, in my That's Bullshit segment. I'm going to go ahead and paste the link for that right here in the chat. Urge people to take a look. And while you're there, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, Worth Knowing on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it. But we do try to unpack questions like what you addressed and what Cynthia Rice said here. I don't see how turning over a list over religion is legal. And as you said, there is at least a fig leaf of legal standing for the EEOC here. It is, and this is an Obama federal judge who issued this ruling, like there is legal standing here. There's some ground for them to rest on. But I think that the larger point, and the reason why this is bullshit, is they're really just they're doing this to put pressure on, right? It's the same thing as withholding grants. This is just a way to take a swing at all
It's
the
all part
universities.
of the same bad shit.
Right. And I also, by the way, while we're taking a little break from the flow of the legal review, I do want to say hi once again to MJ. Look, I'm sort of sorry that you're back in an office again, but I'm very happy that you are, I hope, happily and gainfully employed. I personally love not working out of an office, either in all of my writing, creative work, my YouTube and podcast work, or in my day job that I also still maintain because it's a little bit better compensated than YouTube. And I think anytime anyone is, even if you're stuck in an office in a job that you hopefully like, that's great. All right.
Hey, listen, when Matt was my chief of staff, he didn't complain. He seemed to kind of like it.
Not in your presence.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
okay.
there was the minor,
fine.
I picked a bad couple of years to stop sniffing glue. I'll just put it that way.
Okay,
All right.
good.
Let's talk a little bit about just a couple of the other cases, because again, there's just been this slew of rulings going on here. What about these First Amendment and retaliation cases? I want to draw a nexus here between a federal judge blocking the effort to defund NPR and PBS as unconstitutional viewpoint discrimination, and the ruling that the lawsuit against the administration from law firms targeting them over their clients and DEI, it's scary DEI, people,
It's very scary.
finding
DEI
of First Amendment violations. So it seems to be a win here, just an unalloyed win in the courts for the First Amendment and restraining Trump from retaliation. Is that your read? Are these significant?
Yes, they are, because you put your finger on it. It is the invocation of the First Amendment seems to be a bridge too far for the courts. The violations by the Trump administration are clear. He is taking a spiked cudgel to people wherever the fuck he wants to. And he can't, because the First Amendment, evilly motivated, will get all the liberals that Trump is fond of. It's whatever the fuck I want to do. I'm Donald Trump. I can do whatever I want to do. Law firms, bend your knee. NPR, PBS, I don't like your reporting. Go fuck yourselves. What the courts say? No, we're sorry.
Very good. What was the weakest link catchphrase? You are the weakest link. Goodbye. What about, let's just talk about the federal funding freezes. This kind of is back on the university squeeze, but the executive cannot override Congress's power of the purse. This was like the research funding, UCLA. This is a bigger one in my mind, because we've seen an awful lot of this stretching back to the first Trump administration of the president basically believing in unitary executive theory, a la Project 2025, and saying, I can do what I want. It doesn't matter what the Congress has authorized or appropriated. And this reaches to all kinds of, from the very first impeachable offense of withholding funding from Ukraine, all the way through immigration actions, reprogramming all kinds of funds across the government. Is this one sort of as major as it feels to me?
I think so. Let me just pull back a little bit. A 30,000-foot view of this is Russell Vought is the architect of Project 2025. Project 2025 is the blueprint to do away with democracy and install a white Christian national theocracy. Donald Trump is the perfect puppet for Project 2025 because he's a demented narcissist who believes that he can do everything. And so far, he has skated through life, never serving a day in jail. And so we have, let me do whatever I want to do. The courts say, no, you can't do whatever you want to do, because there are some legal barriers and legal guidelines, and you can't simply exact revenge and retribution everywhere. The courts, you asked at the top of the show, what are the restraints? The courts so far, at least in part, have proven to be the only restraint that we have on Donald Trump.
I think that's a great point to segue to the other conversation and the bridge I want to get there via. Boy, I really yoded that.
Oh, yeah. No, they might go after your bridges. Be careful.
Yeah, that is a level of grammatical erudition up with which I will not put. I do want to just hit on a few of my starred chats here that I particularly liked. There are a couple that I'm saving. So if you think I skipped over yours, I may be coming to them later. First of all, I just want to say I like George a la G9125's just string of crucifixes and stars of David together. I, coming from a mixed faith marriage, like I do with a practicing Catholic wife and me being a Catholic, a practicing Jew, Paul, the same thing. I'm all for your message if I'm interpreting it the right way. And if I'm not, and
Come
it's
on,
something weird,
people
then
now,
don't correct me.
smile on your brother.
Yes,
Everybody get together, try to
exactly.
love.
Speaking of which, Mr. Chin underscore 420, who might be real, says he grew up in Massachusetts. All this Jew hate is fake news. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I
I
don't
think it's
know.
as real here as it is everywhere else, but I take your point. I hope you're right. I hope that this is being blown out of proportion, but my experience is that it's not. I want to join. There's a lot of comments here in the chat family just sending some love MJ's way, which I totally want to pile on to. So that is awesome. We love the prosperity among members of the chat family. Finally, I just want to touch on this comment from Dominic underscore Calandra. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing. I came to this country the legal route over 22 years ago. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I don't understand this lazy mentality that permeates the US. People want all of the rewards without the work. I just think that's super fascinating. And first of all, Dominic, welcome, a belated welcome 22 years late. We like to think of ourselves as the country that welcomes people from abroad to come here, work, make a life here, contribute, help build the society. That's how our forebears, Paul's and mine, came here. And I think that's awesome. And I get your point. I think that Democrats undersell your point at our peril, that there is a feeling out there that perhaps Democrats have not recognized some of the anxiety, some of the economic anxiety that seems to come from, and that Republicans managed to play on immigration and some of the economic dissolution that communities across the United States have suffered because of our trade policies, because of some of the ways in which we've failed to invest in our country and try to not put America first. And look, I think America first is fucking stupid as a slogan, but I get why it resonates. And I get why the message, look, when Trump, as Dominic says, when Trump does it, it's toxic and there's racism and immigrant baiting. And it's just like every metastasized evil version of what is a legitimate and real political impulse that I don't think Democrats have reckoned with sufficiently over the last 15 years. Paul, do you want to comment on that before we move on to this second big question of where we stand in the political fight against Donald Trump?
The politics of immigration in this country are not new. Every wave of immigrants to the United States coming to look for a better life, look for opportunity, escape persecution, as my grandparents did, are faced with prejudice and bigotry, and in our past, laws preventing people from coming here. And I think it's historically accurate to say that those who have come here from other places are very often motivated to work harder, be smarter, and seek the American dream through hard work. So I take what Dominic says very seriously, and those who come here legally are very often very concerned and opposed to illegal immigration and want to see serious reform and serious measures done to get a handle on the challenge of illegal immigration and see a system that provides for a good system for legal immigration. Now, that said, we can all have different views of whether or not mass deportation and the kind of inhumane approach that the Trump administration has taken to mass deportation is appropriate. Nobody wants to see people murdered in the streets of Minneapolis or anywhere else in this country, and the inhumane conditions of the mass deportation are terrible. That said, it's Trump and the Republicans who have put a stop to immigration reform time and time again so that they can use it as a political wedge.
I want to turn to the political question and a new set of numbers that I found super fascinating over the weekend. And I'll just quickly acknowledge sometime dissenter, but always offer of interesting comments, Jason Beatrice, 7362, who's not saying anything. I feel like you think I'm a robot and you're trying to mess with my ability to process a paradox because you're posting and saying you're not saying anything. I need to hear more here, Jason. I'm sorry. And Dominic, again, thank you for the thoughtful comment here. Very much welcome the point of view. Not sure where we totally agree or disagree. It's a much longer conversation to have here, but I appreciate your participation in all this. So look, let me just splash some numbers on the screen. And look, I know this is a lot. I'm going to throw numbers at people. We're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be confusing, but I trust the viewers of this show. You're extremely smart. And I know you can handle it when we do the numbers.
It was my understanding that there would be no math.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
G. Elliott Morris posted over the weekend on Substack. He's a former 538 data analyst after Nate Silver left. He used to be at The Economist. Now he's got a Substack. Like we all do, I think it's like having a set of lungs. Here's the first set I want to look at. And he notes that favorable views of congressional Democrats among Democrats have been spiking recently. And his point is that progressives are coming home to the Democratic Party. Okay. This is argument number one for Elliott Morris. Now, why is that significant? Because much of the dim view of the Democratic Party that's been reported repeatedly by the media about polls and surveys and man on the street interviews is because Democrats themselves have been saying, we are not happy with the Democratic Party. Now, that's a very different thing than saying we don't consider ourselves to be Democrats, we don't like Democrats, or we're not going to vote. So some of the recovery here, and I'm going to put up another set of numbers here, among very liberal Americans over the course of the last 3 months, the net favorability of congressional Democrats has surged. Very liberal, self-identified, very liberal Americans. A massive swing from -13 to +20. So I want, before we go any further, because there are some more numbers here, I want to put forward kind of a provocative idea to you, Paul, that of course you could dismiss this and you could say people are getting geared up. It's an election year, it's midterm election coming, and Trump has been singularly awful. So people are looking at the Princess Bride dilemma. I can't choose the wine in front of you. I can't choose the wine in front of me. You're both poisoned with iocane powder. And then they're like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm taking this wine in front of me. I like the Democrats a lot better than that. That could be all this is. But is it possible? Is it possible that Democratic leaders have been doing a better job navigating all of this than I've been giving them credit for?
The answer to your question is yes and no. Democrats have been in the crapper for a long time. The public has had very negative views of Democrats. That's been reinforced. You and I have talked about it over the years. Democrats have had better policies, but lousier messages. Democrats, in the face of Republican stonewalling and coherence, have been incoherent and flailing. Feckless is a good word. However, I'd be really curious with that spike that we saw in 3 months ago to see how closely that spike correlates to Democrats united in the House and the Senate coming to grips with the DHS and ICE situation and saying, no, we're not going to fund DHS until you deal with ICE. This may be a watershed for all Democrats, not just progressives, not just centrists, but all Democrats, where they finally see, as I said in my first campaign, or maybe it was my second campaign for Congress, I'm bringing my backbone with me. This is perhaps the most singular example that I can remember of Democratic leadership standing united, standing firm, and saying, no, we're not compromising. No, we know there's going to be some pain, and the lines at the airports were painful, and Trump put ICE in the airports and all that. But no, we're not going to do it. The answer, Donald Trump, is no, go fuck yourself. Now,
All right.
I think that is what has done Democrats some goodness in the polls, and then we can talk about the deeper issues, but that's what's going on now.
I take your point. The majority of the heavy lifting is being done by Trump's awfulness. And by the way, there is another set of numbers. I teased this second. I might as well just spill them. Double haters. Like, I keep wanting to do Trump on stuff like this. They call them double haters. I invented the word. Yeah. Oh, Donald.
You do a good Trump. You sound terribly like him.
Nah, not really. I'm doing a pale imitation of James Austin Johnson doing Trump, and I'm not very good at it. But look, double haters. These are people who hold a deeply unfavorable view of both parties. Now, they have swung for Trump in 2016 and in 2024. Among many reasons that you could say, this is why Trump won, that is one of the leading candidates. Trump won among people who voted but said, I don't like either of my options, the Princess Bride dilemma, iocane powder, right? But as of today, according to a CNN survey, this group of double haters prefers Democrats by 31 points. So that is a huge shift, a massive shift in just a year and a half. And again, I take your point, Paul, that probably it's just Trump. If we boil it down, it's just Trump. But let me do something kind of fun. And I can just feel people are going to blow up at me on this. Oh boy, I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be great. Go ahead. MJ, warm up your boxing gloves. You're going to take swings at me. We've got MJ saying Hakeem Jeffries won't even turn on Trump. Democratic Party leaders are useless. We've got Tree McGreen saying Dems are winning despite weak diet MAGA leaders.
And I have some things to say about this too.
Okay, you go first. I was going to set up a straw man for you to attack, but you take the slings and arrows.
The challenges for the Democratic Party are legion. We've got policies that people want, but we never have a good message. And what we're really missing, ultimately, both in the short and the long term, is a coherent vision for the 21st century when everything has changed in terms of AI, in terms of Trump, in terms of the rise of MAGA, in terms of 1/3 of the people still loving Donald Trump. The 21st century is upon us. There's a lot of the country that's been hollowed out, and Democrats have not really spoken to the solutions that we need to bring America back in the 21st century. Now we've got to deal with the Trump problem. So that's the long term. In the short term, in terms of progressive policies, in Maine, Graham Plattner, an oysterman, a local government guy, a harbor master in Maine, is way ahead of the Democratic Party's chosen candidate, Maine Governor Janet Mills, who's 78. Plattner's in, I don't know, 40s or something. He was a Marine. He's got baggage. He's got a bad tattoo. He said things he shouldn't have said about women. Despite all that baggage, he is speaking to the populist Democratic agenda and the kind of basic values that Democrats need to get back to. And he's unapologetic. Now, he's apologized for his bad remarks. He said he was stupid to get his stupid tattoo. He's been very upfront about what he did wrong, but who he is now. He is way ahead of Janet Mills, and it looks like he is headed to take on Susan Collins, who has proved to be Teflon. This year, with bad Donald Trump as president, with the MAGA policies going way south, with an unpopular war, with gas prices more than $1 more expensive than they were, when they're about to be hit with the food prices because of the fertilizer costs that are going through with everything going through the roof, and the follow-on of all of Donald Trump's crazy shit. Even if he stopped the war tomorrow, it's going to be bad for months and months. I think that the Democratic socialist policies espoused by Graham Plattner and Bernie and AOC are finding a resonance with people who have finally said, enough's enough. The traditional Democrats haven't really produced, but maybe it's time to actually have some bold, progressive policies. And I think that's attracting people who finally said, okay, we tried the right wing. Let's go.
I'm going to go ahead. I know media loves conflict. I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think people give a shit about progressive or not. I think
Forgive my labels. All I'm saying is, if Democrats are saying, "Fuck the rich, fuck Trump, fuck war, bring down prices. We got to make things affordable for people." And the only way to do that is, why are the oligarchs and the corporations running everything? We got to do something about that. It's time we had a government that was effective. That's not a bad message, Matt. That kind of works, doesn't it?
It works. I'm just pointing out that I think the label and even the policies, I don't
hate
think
the
people
label.
really, yeah,
I
don't think people really care about that or understand. And I'm not saying they're stupid. I just don't think that they really understand what the label means. And I
Okay,
think
so
the progressive label doesn't help. I think what people care about is Mom Donnie talked about prices. You can't afford anything anymore. And that resonated with people.
I agree
right?
with you. I'm not trying to put labels on. Look, I only
Come
use
on,
those
let's
labels.
hack you.
I only use those labels because they're in common usage. So what do you want me to say? Prices, affordability, great. So Rahm Emanuel came to New Hampshire. I missed him, but he came out with an agenda, 6 for 26, some of which I agree with. Rahm Emanuel is no left winger. Rahm Emanuel
used
is a
to
hedge
curse at you constantly in Congress.
Constantly.
Are you buds with Rahm again?
No, I'm not buds, but I wrote him back and I said, Rahm, 6 for 26 is fine for an agenda, but what are you going to say to people that will make them like Democrats again and for a long term? Because if we just get rid of Trump and do the same shit that Democrats did before, we are not going anywhere. It's going to be back again to some pendulum swing. How are Democrats going to stay if we can win? If we can, how are Democrats going to stay long enough to actually get some shit done?
Lefty Graham says it's simple. Billionaires bad. I want to say, by the way, you probably don't remember this. You probably don't remember this from your time in Congress. Oh, you know what? This is before you were in Congress. Now I know why you don't remember it. When I was working in Congress, I got hauled in by Rahm Emanuel's office and Nancy Pelosi's office when we were running the 06 midterm campaign that brought you into Congress. And they had an agenda. You know what they fucking labeled it? You know what their brand for it was? 6 for 06. Now Rahm is recycling.
I know.
He's in favor of recycling because it's 6 for 26.
Nobody knows shit about 6 for anything. That's just
6 for 06.
That's an agenda.
Listen, I promised people that they could take pot shots at me, and now I'm going to let them do it. Is it now? Maybe I'm just constructing a straw man for you to light on fire. Oh, MJ, I'm sorry. You might want to plug your ears for this part. This is just a case. I'm just making a case. Okay. Is it possible that Democratic leaders have been doing a better job than we give them credit for? Here's the case. First of all, there's an old political saw that when your opponents are hanging themselves, you keep feeding them rope. Republicans and Trump especially have been doing such deep political damage to themselves that Democrats have probably been well advised to not make the story about them, to just let them keep landing haymakers on their own chin. And they've been successful at that. Argument number 2. There have been 2 shutdowns in the last 6 months. One of them, the first one, was sort of Democrats reached a point where they had to do it. Chuck Schumer had to do it over the situation in Minnesota. And we won on that shutdown. And then we had another partial one over DHS. We won on that shutdown. You see it in the polling numbers. You see it in Americans' views on the core issues involved. And all of the people who were prognosticating, hey, this might turn south on the Democrats, me included. I wrote this in Newsweek that all of the historic evidence said we were going to lose that shutdown. We had to do it anyway, but we were going to lose that first shutdown. Turns out we didn't. So we're pitching a shutout on the shutdowns. And number 3, there's still time. It's only April. We are 7 months away from the midterm elections. There is plenty of time. And my Republican counterpart on the Political Rehab show was making this case. He is an active political operative who doesn't mind handing out free advice to his opponents. And he said, I actually think Democrats have been doing the right thing for the midterm elections. They've been staying underground. They've been letting Trump do all the damage to himself. Now, in the next couple of months, is when you start to emerge with a consolidated campaign message. Not before that. Now, is it possible that wise heads within the Democratic Party have been doing what they can and have actually been kind of doing the right thing?
Okay, so number one, yes, let them hang themselves. Good job. Number two, shutdowns. Whoa, Matt, you were wrong. The shutdowns worked for Democrats. That's good. Number three, messaging now that we're headed for the midterms. Still too early. It's only April. Nobody's listening to messages. We probably don't have enough money to really do the huge work that the message needs to be. But at some point, we need a coherent, emotionally resonant message that actually harkens back to traditional democratic values, but couched in language that suits today's world, which is totally fucking different than it was when FDR was our hero. Yes, we need a strong Democratic leader. That won't, by the way, emerge for a while. I don't put it past Democrats to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory by not figuring out how to be coherent heading towards the midterms. We've done it before. We can do it again, people.
All right, take us inside this, because I was sort of tongue in cheek, but I was making a serious point when I was telling that short story before about it's 2006. Nancy and Rahm, the Democratic leadership, were in the minority in the House. We thought we were up against the worst threat to American democracy in history since Richard Nixon, at least in the form of George W. Bush. Oh, were we wrong? Oh, Trump was just waiting there saying, "Hold my beer." So we had this slogan. What was supposed to be, as you say, a coherent message that had been cooked up in a lab by the best brains in Democratic politics. Seriously, John Lawrence, Nancy Pelosi's chief of staff, dragged all the chiefs of staff into a giant conference room to say, we have worked on this for 8 months. Here is our 6 for 06 agenda. We have a slogan. By the way, the slogan was, ready for this? Together, you better. I know.
You better. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Could I
just
Matt, this is causing me such ash. Can I just say that there is no way that groups of Democratic insiders, chiefs of staff, members of Congress, members of the Senate, leadership can understand how to speak the language that the people need to hear. They're in their brains. They're too fucking smart. They don't get it. There is a way to come up and translate Democratic shit into plain English, but the Democratic leadership never gets it. They didn't get it in 2020, in 2006. I'm an accidental congressman. I won a seat in Congress by doing one simple thing, which I thought was really smart for my people. I tied the current congressman to the current president. I said Bush Bass. I never said anything else, but it's the Bush Bass war in Iraq. So if I was running for Congress now, it would be I'm the Trump X war in Iran, and your gas prices are paying the cost. Okay.
Oh yeah, we lost your connection there for just a second. Yeah, look, that is a very old and successful playbook, and sometimes it's the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. You didn't have to do anything more sophisticated than the guy's name is Charlie Bass. By the way, point of irony. Charlie Bass is a really nice guy, and in subsequent years, you became kind of a friend of his. I became a friend of his chief of staff. And as Saint Barack would say, he was pretty good.
Pretty good.
Not bad.
Pretty good.
Let me be clear. Yeah, he was not that bad. Again, we thought we were running against the forces of Satan.
We thought it was Satan.
Yeah, but look, and there's a lot of comments coming in here, and we are coming around toward the finish line. I think the point is this. Some people are saying we're just shitty at messaging, right? That's Wildcard 273's point. Like, we're not super great at boiling things down. agree. By the way, I did bait Jason Beatrice before, and I like this comment. I think this comment is interesting. If I could give Democrats some advice, just say we need to reevaluate our relationship and military funding with Israel. Just taking an outright pro-Palestinian stance drives the wedge deeper. I think that's interesting. We don't have time to get into it, but thank you for offering that. And then we've got MJ saying, literally every time Hakeem speaks, I die inside. Richard Gillespie makes the point. Yeah, but he might be keeping the peace behind the scenes, which I think is a big deal. Let's close out on this. Just give us an inside view. I was telling that story by way of saying, I think the messaging was shitty. I agree with the comment. I think the slogan we came up with was asinine. I think the 6 for 06 label was impenetrable to most normal human beings. But what Nancy Pelosi, even back in the mid-2000s, when she was not a great messenger, I think she got a lot better later. One thing she could do is she could keep the peace inside the Democratic coalition. She could keep us from outright stepping all over each other. And I do think there's an argument that's real here, which is, okay, Chuck Schumer is a shitty messenger and Hakeem Jeffries, not much better. But as inside operators, they might not be doing that bad a job. There is some value in that. And then on top of that, there's the constraint of you've been a member of Congress and you recognize better than anyone, there are not that many levers to pull when you're in the minority. There's not that much that you can do. It might be that Dems have sort of been maxing out the ability, at least congressional Dems, of what they can really do to restrain Trump. What do you make of that argument?
When you're in the minority in the House of Representatives, you can't do shit. You don't set the agenda for the legislation. You can't really win any votes. In the current situation, you can't find any Republicans to do anything with you. So you can hardly work across the aisle. Maybe there's some of that. So what you can do is figure out how to win the midterms and regain your majority, because in the House of Representatives, majority is everything. In the Senate, the minority has more levers to stop bad stuff. Because of the processes and rules in the Senate, it's a little easier for the Senate for the minority to put brakes on. Behind the scenes, and I just saw a comment about Nancy Pelosi. I was president of the freshman class when Nancy Pelosi was elected the first female speaker. Whatever you may think about Nancy Pelosi was brilliant at managing the caucus, about keeping the cats together. In terms of herding cats, at the time that I was elected 20 years ago now, we had a substantial cadre of blue dog Democrats who were very far to the right of a lot of the other Democrats. Nancy had to keep all of those together with the entire caucus. She was brilliant at it. I don't know that Hakeem is as brilliant as Nancy Pelosi, and with Democrats in the majority, there isn't that much to do. But you haven't heard a whole lot of internecine warfare coming out of the House of Representatives. You have many different viewpoints, but you don't. But Hakeem seems to be doing a pretty good job at doing what Matt talked about as number one, letting Trump and the administration hang themselves by giving them the rope. So in the background, we've also seen Hakeem and Schumer working together pretty well. The DHS and ICE business that the Democrats were able to do in terms of saying, no, we're not going to fund DHS, is a pretty good example of leadership in the House and Senate, controlling their caucus and working together for a result that has ended up serving the Democrats well.
All right. I like to give you the last word, but I'm not going to do that, because this is the last bastion of democracy. And after tonight, when our president may be committing open, explicit war crimes, this may literally be the last bastion of democracy. So I want to give the people the last word or words. And I'm going to do that in the form of some comments that we've gotten just in the last couple of minutes that I find absolutely delightful. And then we're going to get out of here. So first, I want to splash up Teen Wolf-T20, who says, impeach convict, remove the Trump administration and Trump himself. Trump smells like shit. Trump administration smells like the swamp they claim to drain. No notes. Lefty Gramps wants to say Pelosi was great. It's too bad all she left for a legacy is a Republican-led healthcare plan. I'd just like to say to Lefty that some members of Congress laid down their seats to vote for that plan and then subsequently suffered the political consequences, which ended their electoral politics career. A guy named Paul Hodes, who I know is one of them, and he takes that with a grain of salt that was kind of rubbed into that wound. But I hear your point, Lefty. Public option would have been pretty great. Just saying. I like this comment here from, Jason Beatrice coming in with Blue Dogs. I remember the Blue Dogs and I missed them. I worked for a Blue Dog, and some of the contributors to this show and the channel are former Blue Dog staffers. And that was at a very different time in America where there were still Democrats who represented conservative districts, which was a tough walk to make. Lori Along 5676 says Trump and his whole administration has to go. We need a clean slate, get rid of judges that vote for immunity. Amen. And finally, I have to give the last word to the very busy at work, but still enough time for us, MJ, who says of Nancy Pelosi, she can herd cats. Hakeem can't herd his own balls. We will have to get into a boxers or briefs conversation with Hakeem as soon as I can drag him onto the show. Speaking of dragging people onto the show, Paul, thank you for letting me drag you onto the show once again. I always have a great time whenever we reunite for this kind of thing. I hope everyone in the chats did as well. Thank you for giving us your legal and political analysis. Let's cross our fingers and pray seriously that things don't get much, much worse tonight and over the next 24 hours. I am rooting for a taco here. Yes. And in the meantime, to everyone out there, stay safe, be well. We'll see you next week.